The Axeman of New Orleans. A killer with a jazz twist. What would you do if a killer threatened to take your life? Unless you played jazz. This isn't a ghost story or an urban legend. It's a chilling piece of history from the streets of New Orleans, a city known for its vibrant culture, rich diversity, and unmistakable love for jazz. But in 1918, the lively city was overtaken by a shadow of fear, as an unseen figure stalked the streets, slipping silently into homes, leaving families murdered in their own beds. For a period, terror ruled New Orleans, and for one terrifying night, the only way to escape his wrath was to fill the air with music. Our story unfolds in the early 1900s, right in the heart of New Orleans. At that time, the city was a bustling mix of cultures, with people from every corner of the world, from Italy to Ireland to Africa and beyond. The city's famous jazz was in full swing, pulsing through the streets and breathing life into New Orleans' unique atmosphere. Music was woven into the city's identity, making New Orleans a place where joy, rhythm, and celebration never seemed far away. But in 1918, a very different mood gripped the city. It started one summer night with the brutal murders of Joseph and Catherine Maggio, a married couple found dead in their own home. The scene was shocking. The couple had been hacked with an axe and slashed with a razor, their bodies brutally left in a way that horrified even the most seasoned police officers. Yet it wasn't just the act itself that was disturbing. The killer hadn't brought his own weapon. Instead, he had used the Maggio's own axe, found in their house, to commit the crime. Whoever he was, he left no clues, no fingerprints, and seemingly vanished into the night without a trace. The police were baffled, but for the people of New Orleans, this horror was only beginning. Just a few weeks later, another attack occurred, then another. Each time, the story was the same. Families found murdered in their beds, attacked with their own household tools, with the killer leaving nothing behind to help investigators. It was as though he could slip in and out of homes without a sound, without leaving even the faintest trail. Who was this killer? And why did he choose such brutal, random attacks? As the bodies piled up and the questions remained unanswered, people in New Orleans began to see a pattern. Most of the Axeman's victims were Italian-American grocers, and this fueled wild theories. Was he specifically targeting Italians? Did he hold a grudge against grocers? Some began to whisper about mafia ties, others speculated about revenge or racism. But nothing seemed to fully explain his motives. Each attack seemed almost random, yet they were all alike in their gruesome nature. People began to wonder if the Axeman was toying with the city, feeding on their fear. The fear soon turned to full-blown paranoia. Families began barricading themselves at night, keeping watch over their loved ones, hoping to outlast the terror. The police were under tremendous pressure to catch him, but with no evidence to follow, they were as helpless as the citizens they swore to protect. The Axeman was everywhere and nowhere. The city of New Orleans was left in a constant state of anxiety, haunted by the idea that the killer could strike again at any time, in any home. Then, in March of 1919, something happened that took the fear to a whole new level. A letter was published in a local newspaper, allegedly written by the Axeman himself. It was eerie, mocking, and bizarre. The writer introduced himself as a demon from the hottest hell, someone who found joy in the fear he spread across the city. The letter seemed almost playful, as if he were enjoying a sick game. But the most bizarre part came at the end, with a chilling demand. He warned the people of New Orleans that on a certain night, he would be roaming the city in search of his next victim. But he made an unusual offer. Anyone playing jazz music would be spared. Imagine the shock of reading that. The people of New Orleans didn't know if the letter was real or some twisted prank, but no one dared to take the risk. On that fateful night, the city transformed. People who had never cared for jazz before suddenly became its biggest fans. Homes that had never played music before now blared jazz through their windows, Families huddled around record players. Clubs stayed open late. Musicians played non-stop in the streets. It was as though the entire city had united to keep the Axemen at bay, filling the night with the sound of trumpets, pianos, and drums. For one unforgettable night, New Orleans pulsed with jazz, turning fear into a strange, city-wide celebration of survival. Neighbors gathered together, keeping each other company, creating a city of music and resilience. It was as though the city had confronted the darkness with its own heart and soul, filling the streets with the sound of survival. And it worked. The night passed without a single murder. The Axeman stayed away, leaving the city in a strange mixture of relief and disbelief. For one night, the people of New Orleans had outsmarted the terror with the very music that defined them. But even as the night passed, a question lingered in everyone's minds. Was this truly the end of the Axeman's terror? Unfortunately, the Axeman's temporary absence didn't mean the horror was over. A few weeks later, he returned, striking with the same brutal methods. His attacks seemed even more random and chaotic than before, leaving the city back in a state of fear. The police still had no clues, no real evidence, no closer to understanding the madman's motives. People had begun to realize that nothing, not music, not precautions, could stop this killer. By now, the fear that gripped New Orleans was more than just physical. It had burrowed deep into the minds of its people. The city's once vibrant neighborhoods became tense and suspicious. Neighbors began looking at each other with wary eyes, wondering if someone they knew could be the Axeman. The joyous spirit of New Orleans was replaced with paranoia and dread, with fear taking the place of laughter and music. Then, just as suddenly as he had appeared, the Axeman vanished. The attacks stopped, the fear eased, and people began to hope that their nightmare had ended. Despite years of investigation and countless theories, the police never found the Axeman. They never learned who he was, why he had chosen to terrorize the city, or why he'd suddenly disappeared. The Axeman left New Orleans as mysteriously as he had come, leaving behind a city haunted by questions that would never be answered. Over the years, the legend of the Axeman only grew. In New Orleans, a city that loves its stories and its mysteries, the Axeman's tale became part of local folklore, a chilling reminder of a time when terror walked the streets. The mystery inspired books, movies, songs, and countless retellings. He became linked forever to jazz, the very music he'd demanded as a bizarre form of protection, or perhaps as his own twisted ritual. To this day, people wonder, was the Axeman a madman with a deep connection to jazz, using it in his own strange game? Or was he something else entirely, beyond human understanding? The truth will never be known. But one thing is certain. The Axeman left his mark on New Orleans, a dark chapter in a city known for its life, color, and music. The Axeman may be gone, but his legend remains, a ghostly presence in the history of New Orleans. Somewhere, in the rhythm of every jazz note, in the pulse of the city's heartbeat, there is a reminder of the night when music saved lives.